Hey guys, I'm back again for the last sketchbook tour for first semester of my first year university classes, and the last one is going to be my architecture studio class. And so this one is a little all over the place. So I started out in the beginning of the sketchbook, the start of it, and then I realized the next, like the studio images class that I had, I reached that end of the sketchbook, and so I had to kind of skip to the end of it and then continue sketchbooking in there. I don't know if that made any sense, but I will show you what I mean. Okay, so this is where it starts, and I will just make sure it's center. And the very first project that we had is we had to design something that would enclose a sphere, a ball. So essentially it was a box that we had to design, but there were a few requirements that you had to meet. Like there was a size requirement, I'm pretty sure it was under 30 inches by 30 inches. And then there was a requirement that the ball couldn't rattle around in your box essentially. So it couldn't rattle around and move around in there, so it had to be secure. So I went through a few different ideas of how to enclose this, and then a bird's nest idea here of how it wraps around. So yeah, when you think of like a box, you think, oh, pretty basic, right? But no, because it is about design, you want to kind of think outside the box, no pun intended, and do something, you know, a little different. And then further drawings here. So yeah, numerous ideas. And then for my final thing, I had something that, I don't know if these drawings make sense, but there is like a square, and then there'd be these other little attachments that kind of interlock with each other, and then this ball is secure and tight in the center of it. And these are kind of different views that I drew. So it's very like, when you look at it from a different direction, it looks completely different. Like that looks like it's a totally different thing from something like that or that. So yeah, it's, oh, like another requirement was it has to be interesting from all different angles. So you should be able to rotate this. So it shouldn't be something that you just plop on the table and that's just it. You need to be able to rotate this, and it should like sit in different positions. So more sketches, and then these came really handy because what I did was I drew it in my sketchbook, and then for our final presentation we had to have drawings as well. And so once I drew it in my sketchbook, I just put trace paper on top of this, and then I just sketched it. So I didn't have to do it all over again and figure out the proportions and everything. I could just place the trace paper right on top of my drawings and sketches and just go from there. And then this is the second project that we had. So there is, we had to pick a painting, and the certain types of paintings, they were called crowns, and they look very confusing. So this is me doing a sketch of what the crown that I picked looked like. And essentially, this looks like a 2D shape, right? But then if you're converting this into something 3D, it could take on a completely different form. So we had to take this painting, which was a 2D painting that has objects that look like they're 2D and 3D, and it's very confusing, and then make a sculptural piece out of that. So it doesn't have to be like an exact duplicate. You want to try and take inspiration from this and try to figure out, if this was something that was existing in real life and I looked at it from a different point of view, what would it look like? So yeah, the idea of it is just to get really creative with this. So this kind of box that is present here, when you're looking at it from another end, it could be hollow, and it doesn't have to be a solid box. So yeah, these are just different ideas and sketches that I did. And in the end, I did make this huge box hollow. So just did 1, 2, and then a third panel on the side there. And then on the inside, the circular disc continues. And this was a completely different idea where I kind of vectorized the whole composition. And there's different kind of arrows that shoot out, and then these little cubes and boxes. And then this right here is just another sketch that I did. And then this is the start of my studio images class. So that's where I ran into the problem. And then I continued it over here. Okay, right over here. So yeah, I think that was all the sketches for that assignment, and then this is the final project that we did, and it was a lot of fun, and we spent a lot of time on this. So about 1 month for this project, and we had a site that was located in downtown, and then it was just an empty lot, and in my research I found out that it was actually a building before that burnt down, and nothing ever really happened to it. So here we had to go to the site and do a site analysis, and I just drew what the site kind of looks like. So there's 2 buildings on either end. There's a bench, garbage can, and then this is a parking lot, a parking garage over here in the back. And so just this empty lot over here. And then these are different views of the lot itself. So this is the rear view looking out onto the street. This is a side view. So it was a really cool lot, which there was an art project there that they wanted to revitalize old areas in the downtown core that were just there and, you know, kind of boring. And they just wanted to put some art up on the walls and make it more interesting and fun. And so there was some very cool graffiti work. I don't know if you can see that. On the wall there. And then this is the rear back alley view. So this back alley where the parking garage is, there's kind of a little area that you can walk behind the buildings. And then that's the opposite end. And then this is kind of, we had to do a Gantt chart, which is essentially like a timeline of the project from the beginning of like the brainstorming and the research to the end of when we had to have everything done by, so it kind of breaks it down. And this isn't the final one, this is just notes that I took down while we were talking about it. And then the whole idea behind the space was that it had to be a contemplative space, and that is open to interpretation of what you think is a contemplative space. So it could really take on any forms that you want. So you could be inspired by churches or libraries or cafes, or what you think a contemplative space is. And then there's the requirements that it had to include a private space for 1 to 2 people. It had to include a semi-public / private space for 5 to 8 people, and then 1 public space for 20 to 25 people. So I think that was just one of the requirements out of the few things that we had to follow. And this is from Google Maps. So I started looking into how this property kind of was before. So this is right after it burned down, and I think it's very empty and there's no signs of life. And then as you keep going, you can see the city put some planters in here, and slowly the grass and weeds started to pop up, and now it's much more a little more vibrant than before because of the graffiti work that was put there, and then the grass and trees. This was around spring as well, but you can see there's a lot more kind of vegetation that's there. And then this is some research that I did. So the place that was there was called Drunken Burrito, and this is a fire that happened in 2011, and this was an aerial shot. I'm guessing probably from the parking garage. So everything was pretty destroyed and ruined there. And there was actually a proposed idea for the space. So there were architects or builders who wanted to build this 3-level building. It didn't really match with the facade of the rest of the street, so it really does kind of stick out. But it was supposed to be this space where I think for a restaurant or a lounge area overhang at the top there. But that did not go through. There's kind of problems that happened with that project. So these are some of the inspirations, ideas that I was looking at. So churches, how a church really has this very, very serene environment, and how that's achieved through lighting and through elevation, right? So different elevations in here, and very tall ceilings, and how that kind of creates the ambience for a very different experience than other buildings. And then some outdoor examples as well. So we didn't have to necessarily build a building. We could design an outdoor landscape as well. So I thought initially that was the direction I was going for, and then it kind of turned around and I ended up doing a building. So this is a breakdown of the requirements and things we had to think about. So from function to representation to form to movement, domains, materials, these are some ideas that I had. And then this was an initial sketch that I did, but I didn't really like it, so I kind of covered it up with some other ideas. And then we had to build 2 study models, and then we can only build the final one. So a minimum of 2 study models. And this was the first one that I did. So this was inspired by churches and the kind of cathedral arc. And it would be an outdoor space. So this is kind of like a floor plan, so looking at it from above. So there would be this kind of overhang arch with 3 different cutouts for sun to kind of come in, and then outdoor space, and then there'd be an elevation that would be going up. But yeah, some general ideas and sketches. And then I began to look at one of my plants that I had and how it created this kind of tier in different levels. So I was inspired by how it kind of reaches up towards the sun, so it grows in the direction of the sun. And that's where I got this idea of different kind of levels and different regions, and that's how I would establish the different spaces, so from private all the way to public. And then some more building inspirations. And then for our when we're building the model, we had to do an accurate representation of, you know, the sizes and everything. So I went on site and I measured, I couldn't measure because it's very tall, so I counted the bricks and measured from there, trying to do the calculation of how tall each building would be. And this one is actually a bit taller. So before I actually went, I kind of did a rough idea by measuring, printing it out, and then measuring with a ruler and figuring out the ratio of it, and then mathematically figuring out in real life how tall it would approximately be. And then this is kind of like the final idea that I had, where it would be this one building and then this private one would be kind of floating, situated above. And then a floor plan of that, and then just the elevation, the facade of how it would look in the street. And that is very out of black, so that's a lot bigger than I made it in the end. So yeah, just kind of going through reiterations of this idea and, you know, fleshing out the details and all of those things. So this is a floor plan of how it kind of looks like. It's almost similar to the final idea that I did. Essentially, there's going to be a wall here and you can walk through. Actually, well, yeah, it did change a lot after, because these are gardens that I had initially, but then I changed that to this waterscape in the front area. And so you would enter from the side here, where there's a building on top, the square cube that's kind of floating in kind of midair. So you can walk under there, and it would lead to the back alley. And then the large building would be here, where this would be the private space, and not the private space, it would be the public space, and then if you go upstairs, a balcony area for a semi-public space. So yeah, I mean, hopefully that wasn't too confusing, but like I went through a lot of different ideas for this project, and then even with my final one, there's a lot more kind of rough work and sketches that I did on trace paper, trying to really figure out what my final solution to the problem was going to be. So that is pretty much it. And again, so this was actually trying to figure out how this floating cube is actually going to be like in real life, how it would work. So there would have to be some kind of small support here, and then there would be this ramp that would be the way that you would enter this area here. So that ramp, which you get in through from this building. So you would have to go through this building, get in here, and then walk through this ramp, which is kind of like a journey on its own, where, you know, you're walking up this ramp and that's how you reach the private space. And oh, that was another requirement. So the private space cannot just be entered easily. So like not have easy access, it has to be separate from the public and semi-public space. So yeah, many different things that you have to follow, but it is pretty open to how you want to approach this project, and perhaps I will film another video of the study models and final models that I created if you guys are interested in that. But yeah, I hope this kind of gives you a glimpse into some of the things you might be doing. First year is definitely a lot more, well, I guess first semester I've been told is more kind of you're creating these sculptural pieces. So you might be thinking, oh, why am I doing this, right? Because it doesn't really seem like architecture or designing buildings like that. And the last project we did was the only thing where we actually designed a building. All the other things were very almost sculptural, like a sculpture class. But it really pushes you to think about design and mass and voids and all those concepts that, you know, are so essential to creating spaces for others. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I'm gonna end it at that, and that is it for the sketchbook tour. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I will see you later.